After months of Donald Trump completely denying that Russia had anything to do with hacking into the DNC, it turns out that his incoming chief of staff has told the media that turns out Trump is acknowledging that Russia may have had a role in election hacking. Now, if you don't believe me, take a look at what Reince Priebus had to say.
Putin ordered a cyber attack to interfere with the election and eventually came to try to help Donald Trump. Simple question. Does the president-elect accept the findings and the evidence of the intelligence community?
Well, I think he accepts the findings, Chris, but here's the thing that I think everyone needs to understand. When this whole thing started, it started from the Russians 50 years ago. In other words, this is something that's been going on in our elections for many, many years, both the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians. It happens. It just so happened that the DNC had nearly no defenses on their system, and when they were warned multiple times by the FBI, they didn't respond.
Does he accept that the Russians were behind this hacking campaign? Yes or no?
Well, sure. I mean, he's not denying that entities in Russia were behind this particular hacking campaign.
This is a little bit of a shift in messaging because, as we know, Trump continuously denies that the hacking occurred by the Russians or that they had any intention to sway the election or public opinion. Let's go to graphic 2 for a second. According to Reuters, Trump had rebuffed allegations that Russia was behind the hacks or was trying to help him win, saying the intrusions could have been carried out by China or a 400-pound hacker on his bed.
That is awfully specific. But Anna, shift happens. And he literally said there, it happens. So he said this has been going on for 50 years. Really? The Iranians and the Chinese and the Russians have been hacking into our computer systems for the last 50 years?
Interesting.
So now I know they do propaganda and we do propaganda. We all care about each other's elections. That part is true. But we were talking about this election and the degree to which they interfered in it. And you got all the intelligence agencies saying so. And this is a very classic Trump trick where he sends out one of his surrogates to say, well, of course, I mean, yes. Shift happens, right? And then Trump, on his own, though, will go signal to all of his voters, I don't really care, it's nonsense. They'll speak out of both sides of their mouth, almost like a standard politician. So on Saturday, Trump was tweeting that having a better relationship with Russia is a good thing anyway. So he hasn't changed anything. And some of the experts in this say, like, that this is totally insufficient. Having Reince Priebus say, yeah, I guess the Russians did something and others do something and it happens all the time. In other words, they're saying we're not going to do a goddamn thing about it, okay? Now, look, whether you agree with the so-called experts on whether that's going to encourage Russia to interfere in our elections going down the road, and, you know, they like the Republicans now, maybe they hate the Republicans the next election, so...
Why do we even need experts to figure out whether it could happen in the future or whether or not this encourages them to do it in the future? They did it during this past election. If they get away with it, what would stop them from doing it again in the future, regardless of which political party they're against? See, for me and for a lot of logical, rational people, this is not about Democrats or Republicans. This is not about Trump versus Hillary. This is about our democratic process and ensuring their foreign country doesn't have any type of impact or power to sway any opinions in our country. And if there is any evidence indicating that that happened this time around, and we have Trump getting elected and saying that he's not going to do anything to stop it, well, then, yeah, of course they're going to do it again. I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah, it's open door policy, if you will. So, in fact, the elections are coming up in France and Germany. But look, I also want to, give the other side a tiny bit here. Other side meaning, well, now Trump has encouraged the Russians to interfere in France and Germany. They're going to do it anyway, right? So Putin didn't need any encouragement. And France and Germany hopefully will protect themselves to the best of their abilities and then have... and if they're going to do sanctions, if they find out Russia was interfering with their elections, then we'd have a separate conversation about that. And then, and I want to make clear that even the commission put together by Barack Obama said, yes, they were definitely interfering, but they concluded there were no vote tallies that were actually affected by Russian interference.
Yeah.
So just be clear, the vote was not hacked. They just did propaganda. They hacked the DNC emails and released that information. That's all.
The report did not say whether or not this information swayed the election in that regard, okay? So it's still an open question in regard to that. They just specifically talked about the tallies, okay?
Yeah, and look, there's two more things about that. One, did it sway the election? Well, almost anything did. The election was decided by 78,000 votes in 3 states. That is minuscule in a country of 330 million people. So the weather swayed the election. What was on the radio that day swung the election, and so did information we got to find out about Hillary Clinton. But it doesn't mean that the information that we found out about Hillary Clinton was false. There was fake news. That's a different story. The hacking released information that was actually true. So part of this is very legitimate concerns about what Russia's going to do in the future. But another part of it is a little bit of sour grapes from the Democrats. Like, oh, well, you released all this true information about us, and if you hadn't done that, well, then we would have won the election. Yeah, but it was true, so maybe you shouldn't have done that in the first place. And you can't complain that we found out information about you that's true. And what did you want the media to do? Oh, the Russians are the ones who found out that information, so don't cover it? Well, that doesn't make any sense. They have independent news value.
Yep.
So sad day for you that the Russians found it, but that doesn't really affect whether it should be covered at all.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Look, there are hardcore Bernie Sanders supporters, progressives, who want to minimize every part of this because of how much they despise the DNC and what they did to undermine Bernie Sanders. And I completely understand that. But to say that these leaked emails didn't sway the election is wrong, because it certainly swayed your opinion, right? I certainly had some trouble supporting someone like Hillary Clinton after those emails were leaked. And so, yeah, it had some impact in swaying people's opinions. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. And I think it's important to not minimize something like this, because we don't want any foreign country or any other organization to have an impact on our elections and our democratic process. That's all this is about.
Yeah, and look, it's not that complicated. Look, always use the shoe on the other foot test. If the Russians had hacked the election to help Hillary Clinton defeat Bernie Sanders in the primaries, how much would you despise the Russians? Right? Again, if they hacked stuff that was true about Bernie Sanders, people are going to report it, and that's life in the big city. But bottom line is, we as a country need to be a little bit better about being on the defense here, making sure they don't hack anything, the DNC, the RNC, our government, most importantly, the vote. Because if they have begun to hack this stuff, then we got to triple protect the vote, and that is enormously important. In fact, we even have a petition on that, tytnetwork.com/verify. Make sure that we know that the vote is never, ever touched and that it is sacrosanct, because that would be a monumental issue. If you want to see this happen, donate $3, $20, $27, whatever you can afford. You know that if everybody that's watching this video donated right now, we could stop the fundraising because we'd have enough. So go to tytnetwork.com/go. We'll wait while you make the donation. Thank you for doing it and for building a great new journalism team. And thanks for watching.